Week 6 of NFL action is here. We're going to be predicting all 15 games of the Week 6 NFL slate. Did do pretty well last week, went 11-3 against the spread and 9-4 straight up, so hoping to build on that. Let's dive right into these predictions, starting with Thursday Night Football. We have the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Denver Broncos. 10.5 point spread in this one, not expected to be a close game, and you can certainly see why. These teams are on very different trajectories this season. The Broncos have pretty much looked awful from the very start. Their defense hasn't been able to do a very good job keeping games close. The offense hasn't put up enough points either. The Chiefs, on the other hand, have been really solid since their week 1 loss against the Lions. Haven't lost since then. I don't think they're necessarily unbeatable by any means. I think that, they have had some close games. You think of the Jets game a few weeks ago. The Vikings game this past week was close as well. This is a division game, so I do think that the Broncos can keep it close. I actually have them covering the spread, but I do have the Chiefs winning 28-20 for obvious reasons. Just think this Chiefs team is a much better football team. Then moving to the Ravens and Titans. This is a 3.5 point spread in the favor of the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens really should have won the game against the Steelers last week. They dominated for 57 minutes of football and just choked it away at the end. The receivers have not helped out Lamar Jackson, but he is playing really well right now. The Titans are kind of up and down. If the offense can give you pretty much anything, this team can stick with almost any team in the NFL. Their defense is really, really tough. But I do think the Ravens are a little bit better. They bounce back from that crushing defeat against the Steelers last week, and they win 23-17, and I have them covering that 3.5 point spread as well. Then the Commanders and the Falcons. The Commanders coming off a little bit of a longer rest after they played Thursday night. They got dismantled by the Bears and just did not have a good defensive performance at all. The Falcons had a nice win as well. Desmond Ridder had a great bounce back as well. Really tough game against Jacksonville 2 weeks ago, but really looked much better this past week. So that is certainly encouraging. Obviously, you have Bijan Robinson in the running game, and I think that the Falcons are the better team here. Ron Rivera just doesn't do it for me as the Commanders coach. I think something has to change there. It wouldn't surprise me if he ends up being the first coach fired, but I'm going to go with the Falcons in this one, 27-23. I ultimately think they are the better team. Desmond Ridder is much better at home than he is on the road. That's kind of a very interesting breakdown between the two, but Ridder is at home. I think the Falcons get this one and win 27-23. Next, the Vikings and the Bears. The Vikings season has really kind of gone down the drain rather quickly. Justin Jefferson out. He is probably going to miss multiple weeks as he's now on IR. Kirk Cousins maybe is potentially going to be moved. We'll see, but that doesn't really affect this week. The Bears have really looked much better offensively the past few weeks, but they have played some really terrible defenses. This Vikings defense isn't anything special, but I think they're a competent NFL defense, which they haven't played in the past 2 weeks with the Broncos and the Commanders. So I'm not sure. I think that with this being a division game, this could be close, but I'm going to go with the Vikings. I think they have a bounce-back performance. Fields in the offense slow down a little bit against a better defense, and ultimately the Vikings win this one 24-19. The Seahawks and the Bengals up next. Joe Burrow and the Bengals looked much closer to the Bengals that we know at this point. Burrow played way better, was able to move around with that calf injury, looking like it is on the up and up at this point. Jamar Chase just absolutely dominated. He proved that he is indeed always open. For the Seahawks coming off a bye week, I think that that was a good rest for them. A lot of time to prepare for this Bengals team going into Cincinnati. This should be a good one. I think both these teams have shown some nice signs as of late. But ultimately, I'm going to go with the Bengals in this one. I do think that this is a very important game for them to get to 500 before their bye week. I think the offense does appear to be clicking right now and at least getting much closer to what we expected for them. And I do think that they win this one 26-20. Should be a pretty exciting game to watch, though. Next, the 49ers and the Browns. The 49ers have just dominated every team in their path so far. And, certainly for the Browns, if Deshaun Watson is not out there, there's kind of just a lot of uncertainty about the quarterback position right now in Cleveland. It's just, the uncertainty with Watson's shoulder, there's just kind of not a lot of information about it. So we'll see if he goes. If he does, is he 100%? And this offense needs to find an identity without Nick Chubb. They really didn't look good. When they played 2 weeks ago with Dorian Thompson-Robinson at the helm, coming off a bye week, they have some extra time to prepare for the 49ers. We'll see if that does help them, but ultimately I can't pick against the 49ers at this point. It's a 5.5 point spread. I do have them covering and winning 27-20 in this one. one. The Dolphins and the Panthers up next. Certainly not a game I would expect to be very close. The Dolphins looks like one of the best teams in the NFL. The Panthers are the only winless team right now as well. I do think that a 13.5 point spread is very, very big. I could see the Panthers getting a late touchdown and making this a little bit closer when it comes to the scoreline and maybe garbage time. I just think 13.5 is a little bit too much. I don't expect this to be a real competitive game or a close game, but I'm going to go with the Dolphins winning 27-17 and the Panthers covering that spread, which is just a little bit too big. Next, the Jaguars and the Colts. Both these teams coming off big wins. The Colts have done a really good job kind of catering their offense to whoever their quarterback is. Anthony Richardson. This week it's going to be Gardner Minshew with Richardson hurt. They've ran the ball relatively effectively. Jonathan Taylor's back in there. Hopefully he'll get a bigger workload this week as well. So I think the Colts definitely have a really interesting offense, and their front seven has played really well as well. So I definitely think that the Colts have some building pieces to really kind of, lean on in this divisional matchup. The Jaguars had a big win against the Bills, and that was a big win for this team. I think this Jaguars offense has somewhat found their stride as well. So I think that this could be a very fun divisional matchup. I am going to go with the Jaguars in this one, 22-17. The Jaguars are 3.5 point favorites. I do have them covering and winning this one, but I expect this to be a very fun game. Next, the Texans and the Saints. The Saints blew out the Patriots last week. The defense played really well, and I think that for the most part, it was just a complete domination for the Saints against a team that you would expect to be really well coached. The Texans did fall a little bit short against the Falcons, but I think that, once again, Stroud played well. It's a well-coached team. I like a lot of the play calling and designs that they're running offensively. It's just about the lack of talent on that roster. They need to continue to add talent to some key areas there, but I do still think that they can be very competitive throughout this season. I think that this Saints team, may be a little bit vulnerable after a dominating win. It's in Houston. I definitely think that the Texans could win this one. I have them squeaking out a close one, a 3-point victory. As 1.5 point underdogs, I'm going to go with the Texans 23-20 in this one. Next, the Patriots and the Raiders. Patriots, like we just talked about, got absolutely dismantled by the Saints. Mac Jones gets benched once again. The offense just really lacks explosiveness. There's no playmakers. Mac Jones just isn't getting them the ball. The defense, with some key injuries, really just doesn't look as formidable as they did earlier in the season. This Raiders team is coming off a win on Monday night against the Packers. That was a big win for them, but at the end of the day, Josh McDaniels is a Bill Belichick disciple, and they just tend to not play well against Bill Belichick. I also think that this Patriots team is going to come in very mad and willing to do whatever it takes to prove themselves. I just think that this one is going to be a tough, hard-fought game, but the Patriots ultimately come away with this win. Going to go with them 23-17. I have them covering that spread as they are underdogs as well, so this should be a really interesting matchup there. Then we have the Lions and the Buccaneers. Both these teams kind of on a little bit similar trajectories, really kind of having a lot of success with just good, efficient play calling. They've got some interesting playmakers. The running game has been working really well for the Lions. The defense has been a huge piece of the success of both of these teams. So I think this will be a very interesting matchup. I think the Lions are just kind of a little bit further along. I trust Jared Goff more than I do Baker Mayfield. And I just think that the Lions have proven to be a little bit more efficient and a little bit more just consistent this season as well. So I am going to go with the Lions 26-20. I have them covering that spread, and I do expect them to pull away and win this one, but I think it will be a fun one to watch. Next, we have the Cardinals and the Rams. The Rams do fall to the Eagles, but they played them relatively tough. Cooper Kupp came back, and it's great to see him and Puka Nacua kind of coexisting within that offense. The Cardinals played the Bengals kind of tough as well. They've looked really kind of decent for the talent level on their team. I think that they have well overperformed what that is, and I do think that in a divisional matchup, they could certainly give this Rams team a little bit of trouble. They are 6.5 point underdogs. I'm going to go with them covering the spread. I do have the Rams ultimately winning this game 24-22, but I think it could be a little bit closer than that 6.5 point spread, and I think that the Cardinals are just a feisty team. They're not an easy out. Next, we have the Eagles and the Jets. Going to go with the Eagles in this one, 24-20. I think that the Jets defense will keep them in this game. The offense has been relatively efficient the past few weeks with Breece Hall, last week really going off. Zach Wilson had a really good game against the Chiefs a few weeks ago as well. So this offense can be good enough to at least keep them in the game, and the defense is absolutely going to, be a really tough test for any team they come across. I think this Eagles team did show some nice flashes of kind of being that Eagles team from last year, and they just have so much depth and talent all across this roster. Their offense is just a lot more explosive than what the Jets have, and I do think that's ultimately going to be the difference in this game. I do think they win, but I have the Jets covering the spread just because their defense is so tough. I think it will be a tough nut to crack for the Eagles offense. Next we have the Bills and the Giants. This is a massive 14.5-point spread, and I really don't care. I'm going to take the Bills to win and cover as well. I have them winning 34-13. This Giants team has just looked flat out dreadful so far. The offensive line can't block a soul. Daniel Jones really isn't helping the issue at all. The defense looked awful this past week as well. I just don't really see a lot of redeeming qualities for this Giants team. You have Brian Daboll at coach, and I think he's a really good coach. But right now, you just lack talent on the offense in particular. The offensive line just destroys really any chance of keeping things on schedule and being efficient, which is really what they did so well last year. So it's just not going to work for this Giants team, especially going up against a Bills team that has had a ferocious pass rush at times throughout this year. The defense is playing pretty well. Josh Allen and this offense is very high scoring, and I just don't see a world in which the Giants are really competitive in this game. So I am going to go with them 34-13. It is the Brian Daboll revenge game, so maybe that keeps things a little bit closer, but I just can't see this being a very competitive contest. Then on Monday Night Football, we're treated to a good one, the Chargers and the Cowboys. Cowboys got absolutely blown out by the 49ers, so they're going to be hungry to prove themselves. The Chargers, coming off a bye week, definitely want to show what they can do as well. I think Herbert versus this pass rush is going to be a very fun matchup. Obviously, no Mike Williams with him being out for the year, but Keenan Allen versus Stephon Gilmore, I think will be a fun one as well. So a lot of cool matchups in this one. Both defenses have a lot of star talent, though the Cowboys defense is actually good for the most part, and the Chargers just are so poorly coached by Brandon Staley, so that's why I am ultimately going to go with the Cowboys 27-23, but I think this could be a really fun one. I do have the Cowboys winning and covering that spread, though. That's going to do it for my Week 6 predictions. Let me know what you think down below. Do you think your team is going to win this week? Drop your score predictions down below. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this kind of content, please hit that subscribe button. While you're down there, hit the like button as well. I appreciate you watching. I will catch you in the next one.